today. How are you doing today? I am your host, Lacey G. Souldier Turner. And today, man, I have a very special guest with me. To me, this guy is one of the greatest actors. Y'all done seen him in Straight Outta Compton. He'd have been on The Shy. Like even watching him like in on other interviews or films or whatever, always see that he has a great spirit. And sometimes when you meet people like in Hollywood and everything, they had a stuck-up attitude, all this type of stuff. But man, I can tell this guy is very genuine, and we finna get into it, in this interview. So I want to welcome you to the wonderful, amazing, talented Jason Mitchell, man. Welcome to the platform.
What's popping, my guy? What's popping, man? Thank you for having me, bro. For real.
No problem, no problem. So I want to get ask you a couple questions today. So the first question: where were you born and raised, and how was your upbringing as a child?
It's funny, right? Because my mom was in the army for 20 years. So I was actually born in Würzburg, Germany, right? Like in the hospital in Munich. So I don't know. I had to be maybe 2 or 3 years old by the time we moved to New Orleans. But I moved to New Orleans and I was there till I was in like the second grade. Then we moved to Belgium, right? Random as hell. We moved to Belgium. And I stayed there for like, I don't know, 3-4 years, something like that. And then we came back to New Orleans again. You get what I'm saying? So, I grew up in the hood, but definitely was cultured like at the same time. And I was blessed enough to see a bunch of different cultures and a bunch of different type of people, and grew up with basically free healthcare and shit like that. You know what I mean? So I had like the best of both worlds growing up. You know what I'm saying? But I definitely still jumped off the porch in the hood. You know what I mean? I lived that life, man, for a while. You know what I'm saying? My dad passed when I was like 15 years old. He committed suicide and shit. So my whole thing was the best way to help my mom or to help myself, was to help myself. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So yeah, I bumped my head quite a few times. You know what I mean? But I was outside, man. I was outside pretty early. So yeah.
Okay. And I also see, coming up in New Orleans, I also saw that you was friends with Lil Wayne. So how did
Oh
that come?
yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, so my cousin used to make beats,
Mhm.
right? Back in the G. And just to be 100% real with you, they had some activity going on too. You know what I'm saying? So they had this group called the Architects, right?
Mhm.
And the Architects, they made um they did like the prefix, the suffix, you know what I mean? A lot of them mixtapes and shit with Wayne um came out. They did that, and they also did a couple things on the first Carter, you know what I'm saying? And they were supposed to get signed to Cash Money and all of that. And it was like a good deal that they had, but Bird had gave it to him like on like a Friday night or something, and was like, yeah, I want it back ASAP. You know what I'm saying? So they just automatically assumed that it was a fucked up deal, even though it was a good deal. And yeah, so in that process, I met Wayne, you know what I mean? And I used to go to the studio with them all the time. This back when everybody thought they was gonna rap, you know how that shit go. You know what I mean? So yeah, bro, I used to just be in there, you know, 13, 14, 15 years old, just watching him just get it in. And to be honest, that shit helped me stop dreaming and start planning. You know what I mean? Because the possibilities was right there. And a lot of people be like, man, I got big dreams and blah, blah, blah. But I was just seeing it in action so much that I started realizing that, like, I tell people all the time, like, the only thing sitting between you and your dream is a plan. That's really the truth. You know what I mean? And I learned that from being around people like him. And it's funny because they just had this thing. I'm out here in Dallas right now. They just had a shit called Togetherland. And Wayne was out here, and it was good to see him and Jay Gutter and Big Fee was in there. You know what I mean? I was on stage with all them and shit. It was cool. It was cool.
Okay. And I also saw somewhere you said I think you was in 11th grade, your best friend had got killed, shot 17 times.
Oh yeah.
Tell you
You
about
shut
that?
him up, bro. That shit was crazy. Um, it's crazy. Well, actually, he was in the 11th grade.
Okay.
He was in the 11th grade, and I had just graduated, right?
Mhm.
But He was like my little brother, bro. We used to, we both used to run around rapping and shit, and that's when we was all young and foolish,
Uh-huh.
So like I said, we had some other activity going on, but he used to look just like me. You know what I'm saying? And we would tell everybody that we was brothers and all type of shit. We used to go to nigga schools and battle them and all of that.
Yeah,
We wasn't tripping because we'll take it to that level too. You know what I mean? We wasn't doing no tripping.
yeah.
So yeah, like one day he came to my house because he used to hang with some dudes, like they're pretty because in New Orleans we don't really have gangs, but sometimes, they make gangs and this one was pretty popular, you know what I mean? For the sake of not making that whole situation famous, I'll keep the name under wrap. But they was pretty popular and it was deep, you know what I mean? And one day they came to my house like, yeah, we about to kill such and such. I'm like, why? You know what I mean? And they was like, oh, because this happened and that happened and that. And I'm like, well, what they got to do with you? You know
Exactly.
what I'm saying? Like, don't you think that if you gonna put your life on the line and your freedom on the line for something, like it need to mean something to you? And he
Right.
like, that nigga do it for me and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, So he ended up coming back to my house that next day and he's just hanging his head and I could just see it all over him. I'm like, man, you did that stupid shit. I know you did. And he just was hanging his head. And then he left that day and that was my last time talking to him. You know what I mean? I blew his phone up and I could just feel it. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
it was the people who he thought he was friends with, you know what I mean? Just used him as a pawn and then pointed the finger right at him when somebody came looking to ride. You know what I'm saying? Because that'd be the thing. When you get into shit like that, you can't just assume that these people who you gonna ride on ain't got nobody that's gonna ride for them. They
Right.
probably definitely do. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Real
So
talk. Right. Fact.
yeah, and when
Yeah.
them people came back around to figure out who it was, they pointed right at him. So they just,
Mm.
yeah,
Sad story. Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that, brother. But let me ask you this too. How